Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and welcome aboard the Eastern Express. In the UFC's early years, champions were sculpted from California gyms or Brazilian favelas, but today, a new breed of fighter dominates the octagon. Men forged in the mountain gyms of Dagestan, in the wrestling halls of Georgia, and the training basement of Eastern Europe. Their accents are thick, their faith unshakable, and their discipline absolute. So how did this remote, often overlooked region become the global capital of combat? Tonight, we enter a world a little bit different to what we are used to covering, but don't worry, you'll surely see some familiar faces from the world of politics. So, without further ado, let's take a look at our latest report to find out more.
Back in 2018, one man electrified the sport of mixed martial arts, Khabib Nurmagomedov. The fighter from Russia's Dagestan was an unbeaten force in the UFC until his retirement in 2020. His dominance didn't come as a surprise to those familiar with the Dagestan school of wrestling, a style that has been perfected in the Caucasus Mountains over the decades.
Wrestling here has been passed on from generation to generation. Our grandfathers wrestled, our parents wrestled, we wrestle, and our children will too. It's in our genes, and I cannot imagine our republic without wrestling.
But success in the octagon often brings attention beyond the sport. The best fighters from this region are frequently noticed by powerful, authoritarian leaders. It is not just Dagestan, however. The Caucasus region as a whole has become a powerhouse in MMA. Fighters from Georgia and Chechnya are now dominating global rankings. This ranking compares fighters regardless of weight class, essentially who is considered the best overall. Notice something? 4 out of the top 5 come from the same region. Fighters from the Caucasus are champions in 3 out of 8 UFC weight classes, and soon it could be 4, as Islam Makhachev fights for the welterweight title in New York City this Saturday.
And now, let's take a look at the issue in greater detail. When Khabib Nurmagomedov first stepped into the UFC cage in 2012, a few in the West could even point to Dagestan on a map. A quiet man with a heavy accent and an even heavier right hand, Khabib wasn't supposed to become a global superstar, but by the time he retired undefeated, he had become more than just a fighter. He was a symbol. For millions of fans across the post-Soviet world, he proved that you didn't need to come from Las Vegas or Sao Paulo to reach the top. A remote village in the Caucasus would do just fine. And it wasn't long before the world noticed that the UFC now had a distinctly Eastern accent. Let's talk about the style, that suffocating, grinding, never let you breathe Dagestani wrestling. It's not flashy, it's not built for show reels, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart. That style isn't born in high-tech facilities or Western sport academies. It's born in tiny gyms with peeling paint where kids wrestle barefoot on worn-out mats and where a bad day means you get slammed twice as hard tomorrow. And that ethos isn't confined to Dagestan either. Across the Caucasus, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, wrestling is practically a religion. Georgians produce Greco-Roman champions like it's an industrial process. Armenians, despite their small numbers, are Olympic medal machines. Azerbaijan has turned oil wealth into world-class wrestling programs. But there's another reason for this explosion of fighters from the East: the collapse of the Soviet Union and what came after. When the USSR dissolved, it left behind a vast athletic machine suddenly stripped of its ideology, but not its infrastructure. What we're seeing is a cultural inheritance, generations of techniques being passed down. But there's one part of the story that's harder to celebrate and impossible to ignore. Because when fighters from the Caucasus race to global stardom, they don't just get noticed by fans or brands or the UFC. They get noticed by presidents, by strongmen, by the kind of leaders who see athletic glory as national marketing material. Khabib found that out when, minutes after winning the lightweight title, he was being whisked into the photo op with Vladimir Putin. Kremlin PR machinery sent a message: Russia produces champions. Never mind that Khabib is Dagestani, not Russian. Never mind that Dagestan's own internal politics are complicated, to put it gently. Fighters like Khamzat Chimaev have been paraded through Chechnya like trophies, appearing in videos training with none other than Ramzan Kadyrov. Now, to be clear, many fighters don't seek out this political theater. Some avoid it. Others are born into systems where refusing an invitation from the local strongman simply isn't an option. It's a reminder that in this part of the world, sport and politics never stay on its own corners, no matter how clean the fight looks under the lights of the octagon. And now, here to shed more light on the issue is Marcin Tybura, UFC heavyweight division fighter. Hello and welcome to Eastern Express.
Hello.
So from the Caucasus to Central and Eastern Europe, we're seeing a wave of athletes that's been dominating the combat sports, be it MMA, boxing, wrestling, and you've yourself been a part of that wave for well over 10 years. Can you help us understand what do you think is the reason behind such overrepresentation of fighters from this region of the world?
Well, it's a very good question. Probably there's a couple of factors. The first thing is that UFC itself spread, all around the world, because first of all, when they started, they were like most focused on the US and Brazil because they were the main markets. And now when they came all around the world, they did this part of the world. Fighters took big advantage of it, and what I see is a little bit different mental strength for sport. That's one thing. In US, everything is more like enthusiastic about everything. Whenever you start doing something, people like pushing you very much, and that's the thing. Here in Europe, in Eastern Europe, it's a little bit more different. People are fighting for better life. Well, that's what I see. And they don't have a big support, but they have struggled a little bit more. So maybe they're a little bit mentally stronger. I think so. I think, but it's actually different mentality. But the thing about like Eastern Europe fighters, they travel to US and then try different kind of training, approaching, to stuff. Actually, I don't see American fighters traveling around the world to see different approach for the sport, because America is so big, they have everything there, so they don't have to.
You mentioned, America, they do have the resources and science-based sports training. There's these mega gyms that are really impressive to look at. And then we see a lot of like Eastern European fighters kind of training out from a dingy little hole-in-the-wall place and still performing very well. What's your experience comparing to like training over there and training back home? As I said at the beginning, I never seen those people like enthusiastic about sport. When I first came to US, everything was that's like from the airport. Everyone who sees me as a UFC fighter, they were super crazy about it, and that's a different kind of thing. And even in the gym, whenever you are you coming to the gym, everyone's pushing you so hard. For sure, they have much more knowledge because, as you said, big gyms, the science that comes to the sport, and that everything this combined makes US a little bit of ahead. That's why I think every fighter fighting here in Eastern Europe travel at least once to US to see what they have there, take some experience, and some of them are moved to US with the strong mentality they built here, and now they gaining some more there. So that's maybe the thing. Right, like you mentioned a lot about this kind of mental fortitude. I think a lot of people also mention fighting from a different motivation. We see a lot of fighters coming out from the United States have this more kind of showboat and self-marketing mentality with they do perform for the camera a lot with these kind of overblown characterization of themselves, and that's something that I don't observe for you, for example, ahead of fights, or most guys coming out from Poland usually humble and let the performance do the talking. Do you think that this also is part of the mentality coming out from this region?
Probably yes. I don't know where it starts. History. The U.S. is different about it. That even like American wrestling itself doesn't sell here, but in the U.S. people love it because they love everything. The show. They love the show, and I think the fighters from there know it very very well. They know it how to sell the fights much more than us. We are selling more like skills. That's what we have. We're not very good at trash talking, but I think people, lots of fans, even in US, admire also the humbleness. Like Khabib Nurmagomedov, who became bigger star because of his skills, but people also love him as a humble guy and someone who didn't go crazy, even though the success he got.
All right, and speaking of that, can you give us a little bit of your experience with this wave of Dagestani kind of wrestling fighters coming out? Have you ever had any personal experience during your career with these type of approach?
Well, I never been there training, but in Performance Institute in US, I had a couple of opportunities to train with them, like Magomed Ankalaev, who's not Dagestan, I guess, but also this part of the region. So I trained with them a couple of times, and at the first thing they don't see much of a difference, and they train very hard, but you cannot tell like a big difference. But for sure, when you start longer, they probably you're getting some details they do differently, and they very focus on the skills. They can repeat all the time and not getting tired of it. When I was traveling around the Caucasus, I was visiting a couple of gyms, and there was like big gyms. They were full of kids or teenagers. It depends what class, but full of kids, full of teenagers, and they were like, repeating whatever coach says all the time. And so I think that's a little bit different, that they focus on the skills.
Right. You mentioned having gone to the U.S. for training, and most elite fighters would go there to take advantage of the resources and the kind of science-backed training system that they have. But again, we're looking at a very overrepresentation of guys fighting out from the Eastern Europe region as well. If anyone were to, say, do the other way around and come from the U.S. to train here, what do you think they might be able to take away from this region?
You mean the U.S. fighters from this region?
Yeah.
Well, for sure, fighters like from Dagestan or some other small places, they train more like in the villages. Not lots of distractions. There's not lots of things to do other than the training, and that's one thing. When someone comes to, for sure, some village in Dagestan, there's not much more to do than practice, like go to the mountains, go to the gym and stuff like this. So maybe that's the main thing I see with these Dagestan fighters.
I've also seen a lot of like camaraderie with people in this region, and mostly Polish fighters, those coming out of Ukraine as well, where once they are kind of entrenched in their circle, in their gym, kind of everybody knows everybody, as opposed to American fighters are more like, seeing players being signed around in a basketball or football team. They get like transferred around. Do you think that does help your game in any sort of way, having this more closely knit community and familiar people that you work with?
Yeah, that's one thing I also noticed, that they're very, people from here and Dagestan are very traditional with the family. Mm-hmm. They, when they go train, there's lots of family, the cousins, fathers are trainers, and they keep themselves very close, and they have a big support inside this community because of of the connections. When you go training, you might get some friends, people who will push you, but the blood connections is always a little bit stronger, and I feel, I see these fighters are one big family, and not only because they say they're family, they actually related.
Right. One thing I've also observed is that, like you mentioned earlier, Khabib has a lot of kind of humbleness that also stems from their religious belief as well. And a lot of people here I also observe come from a relatively religious and kind of traditional background. Do you think that also helps them kind of stay grounded to kind of maintain and manage the ego?
Yes, that's one thing for sure. I actually, we have to go much deeper in this mentality and psychology. But I think when it comes with especially when the small success coming, it usually comes with the distractions, because many people are getting interested with you and they want to take you, to other things, and actually not only, but also the people who wants to make money out of you and stuff like this. So for sure, when you keep it like with these principles that comes with religion, and that helps you to stay humble and focus on what you've been doing before, and not distractions are not easy to get you.
Right. So yeah, we are seeing like a lot of people having their success story and then subsequently, perhaps like you mentioned, being distracted. Last but not least, how do you kind of maintain that hunger for the game? Because like, again, you've been doing this for quite a long time, and how do you keep yourself grounded and not be distracted and, well, staying hungry for the fight?
Well, it's true that I've been doing this for long, but I have ups and downs in my life, and I think that's what they were coming from. Whenever you comes with the success, sometimes it's really hard to handle it, and sometimes you don't know how to stay on your track. And it's not easy. I don't have any formula that I can sell for anyone. I just, as I said, I had the ups and downs, and sometimes I just feel like even when you on a downside a little bit, you just have to, stay there, wait for the better times, and on this downside, there usually comes some answers on what has been good for you when you were on a rising way, and the focus on training is the biggest thing. Focus on what's the most important. When that you go to training, that you become a better fighter, not all this stuff around that comes, because that will drag you out of the focus part, and now you lose it, and sometimes it's really hard to see when exactly it's happening.
Right. So it does seem like great science and great resources can make good athletes, but at the end of the day, it's the mentality that makes the greatest fighters. Thank you so much for being with us on Eastern Express. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now we're moving on to the Eastern News Flash, a series of all the other stories from the East that you don't want to miss. Ukraine is facing a major corruption scandal involving its nuclear energy company. Investigators say one top executive is accused of stealing $100 million in a scheme that could have funded vital defense equipment.
Ukraine's anti-corruption agencies have detained Dmytro Basov, the executive director for security at Energoatom, the state company running all nuclear power plants, after uncovering what they call a $100 million embezzlement scheme. Officials say the money was siphoned off through kickbacks of up to 15% on contracts, with Basov allegedly coordinating the network under the codename Tenor. During the raids, investigators seized over $4 million in cash and linked the case to at least 4 government ministers. To put this in perspective, the stolen funds could have bought 27 Patriot missiles or 40,000 interceptor drones, critical assets as Ukraine faces daily Russian missile attacks and rolling blackouts lasting up to 12 hours. Basov's bail is set at $951,000, and if paid, he must surrender his passports, stay at his residence, and avoid contact with witnesses. The European Union, which backs Ukraine's anti-corruption drive, says this case is a test of Kyiv's commitment to rule of law, a key condition for EU membership.
For the first time, Russia is turning to Chinese currency to raise money. The finance minister says yuan-dominated government bonds will hit the market next month.
The newly introduced bonds in Russia, called OFZ, will be offered in two series, each worth 10,000 yuan, about $1,400, with maturity of 3 to 7 years and interest paid every 6 months. Investors can choose to buy and receive payments in either yuan or rubles. Other placements start December 2nd, with the sale set for December 8th. The ministry hasn't revealed the total amount yet, saying it depends on demand, but reports suggest it could reach the equivalent of $5 billion. Officials have been discussing yuan bonds for a decade, but previous plans were blocked by Chinese regulators. Now, with oil and gas revenues down 20% and customs duties falling nearly as much, Russia faces a budget deficit of $63 billion, 5 times higher than the forecast.
Russia is taking extreme measures to keep its war machine running. In some regions, even those tasked with finding soldiers are now being sent to fight themselves.
In Russia's Far East, the army is punishing its own recruiters for failing to meet enlistment targets. According to Ukraine's defense intelligence, officers and sergeants who can't deliver enough new troops are being transferred straight to assault units on the front lines. One striking example comes from the Republic of Sakha, where 7 heads of recruitment officers were reassigned to motor rifle regiments. There, the shortfall in recruitment is severe, about 40% below Moscow's expectations. Meanwhile, Ukraine says Russian soldiers who don't want to die in what it calls meat assaults have a way out. A special Telegram bot called I Want to Live helps them surrender safely. The project is run by Ukraine's coordinating headquarters for prisoner of war affairs, together with military intelligence.
And that's all on this episode of Eastern Express. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.